Hi, everyone. It's Susan Knowles with Knowles on the News, a special edition of Stand for Truth Radio. We have a lot of issues in the news to discuss today. One very important issue that I know is on the hearts and minds of many of you out there, just like it is on mine, and that is the defunding of Planned Parenthood and all of the ills that we see going along with abortion that's been in the news lately. I don't know if you saw yesterday, but the Democrats defeated the pro-life Senate bill banning late-term abortions after 20 weeks. It was a vote of 54 to 42, with pro-life Senate Republicans not getting the 60 votes they needed in order to bring the issue to a vote. And I think it's important to know there were two pro-abortion Republicans that were involved in voting with the Democrats. I think you should know their names. One is Susan Collins of Maine, and the other is Mark Kirk of Illinois. Again, they voted with the Democrats to support late-term abortions. Now, I don't know about you. When we're talking about 20 weeks, you're talking about 5 months along, if I have my math correct, not using Common Core today. I just don't know how anyone can sit there and believe that a baby would not feel any pain. And I say baby, 5 months. That baby at 5 months can live outside the womb. So I don't know how anybody could sit back and say, oh, well, there's no pain, no pain, no gain. If there's no pain involved in it, why not, why do we, during this operation, is the mother given anything to reduce the pain? I mean, is that really needed? If there's no pain at all, why are we talking about anything like that? I mean, this is just absolutely ridiculous. And, the researchers have come out and said that it's indisputable that the later in pregnancy an abortion occurs, the riskier it is for the mother and the more painful it is for the child. Again, in my mind, we're talking about killing a baby here. This isn't tissue. This isn't just a gob of mass of blood and nerves and tissue. This is a human being. And if you've ever seen any of the ultrasounds and what that looks like, you can actually see, eyes, nose, hands, fingers, toes, legs, body parts in there. And they're not just thrown in there. They're all put together in a human form as you would find on any baby. So don't tell me that it's not a baby. And in fact, we know from studies that premature babies can survive at 22 weeks if treated. In other words, if they're not aborted. I don't understand, help me here with Gosnell. Why did we even have a trial? Why did we find this man guilty? I don't get it. I don't see the difference between what he was doing and what is being done in Planned Parenthood. The only difference that I can see is that some of the mothers' lives were put in danger and some of the mothers died. That's the only difference I can see. But, the breaking apart of the baby, crushing the skull, killing them after they're on the outside of the womb, whatever, I don't see the difference here. I really don't. And if we say, well, it's not really killing unless they're on the outside of the womb, how ridiculous is that? That we're going to use semantics. Like if it's inside the womb and you kill it inside, then if they just came out 2 seconds later alive, that would be somehow murder. I mean, it just boggles the mind of how far we've gotten to get to a point where we are going to justify killing a human being, a life, based upon semantics. It pains me to even say that we've gotten that far. And apparently during a hearing on the last bill, we had people like Dr. Maureen Kondik, who is an associate professor of neurobiology and an adjunct professor of pediatrics at the University of Utah School of Medicine. And she testified that the unborn child is capable of reaching or reacting to pain as early as 8 to 10 weeks. 8 to 10, not 20, 8 to 10. And it was also found that Americans strongly support legislation that would ban late-term abortions and protect babies who are capable of feeling intense pain during an abortion. So, why do we have the Democrats and some Republicans who say, oh no, let's go ahead and do this. This is not a big deal. It's a woman's right to choose. Let's go ahead and authorize having an abortion after 20 weeks. No problem. And according supposedly to a national survey, 84% of Americans want significant restrictions on abortion and would limit abortions to at most the first 3 months of pregnancy, which in my opinion is still too long, but nonetheless. And it says this includes almost 7 in 10, or 69%, who identify themselves as pro-choice, who support such abortion limits and oppose late-term abortions. And I guess in other national reports, there's a show of strong support nationwide for this pain-capable Unborn Child Protection Act and stopping late-term abortions. And yet, again, we still can't seem to get the job done in shutting this down in this majority-rule GOP. And then there was a report by these top researchers, Collins and Marzin, who basically said that functioning neurological structures necessary for pain sensation are in place as early as 8 weeks, but certainly by 13 and a half weeks of gestation. So basically we're going to sit and argue whether or not, when's the exact time that these tissues, so to speak, when do they start feeling pain? And now the argument's going to boil down to that. Well, for some people, they don't really care if there's pain or not, I suppose. Another leading expert in the field of fetal pain, again, we have to have these experts now in fetal pain, believe it or not, said that it is my opinion that the human fetus possesses the ability to experience pain from 20 weeks of gestation, if not earlier, and the pain perceived by a fetus is possibly more intense than that perceived by term newborns or older children. So my question is, how many experts do we need to gather before we maybe listen to them? It's funny because if we had experts who on the other side were saying, oh my gosh, what are you worried about? There is absolutely no pain because really it's not a human being. Really those arms, legs, fingers, toes, eyes, ears, nose that you see, they're not, that's not of a human. That's just tissue come together that kind of look. There's absolutely no way that tissue feels pain. Go right ahead, have those abortions, no problem. Then we would have everybody on the left coming out and saying, wow, did you hear that? Now, see there, it just proves our point. No problem. This is just a medical procedure. What's your problem? But we don't have that, and still, because of the progressive nature of our society these days and how we're being, led down this path by the progressives, we don't mention that. It doesn't come out in the news. And then, of course, we had a couple of people who didn't even vote. And I'm not sure, why you could come up with an excuse. It was only 4 people. I was surprised that Barbara Boxer didn't vote, but I guess because she's leaving, she doesn't really care. Murray, Warner, those Democrats, did not vote, and Murkowski, a Republican in Arkansas. Unless you have some medical reason for not being there or something else, that just you can't excuse and you can't get away from it, whether that's a family emergency or whatever the case may be. Unless you had something like that, you should have been there yesterday voting. Because every single vote counts. And I'm not talking about every vote counts, for this world. Every vote counts for the next world, okay? Every vote counts for your constituents who see that you are listening to them. Because obviously, overall, our government is not listening to us, or we're just being, played, that everybody is for abortion, and we're the only ones out here thinking that the majority of people are against abortion. Now, I don't think that's the truth, but something is wrong here. When you have every single person, almost, on the Democrat side, are you going to try to convince me that every one of your constituents want you to vote to allow abortions after 20 weeks? I mean, not all Democrats are progressives. And there are a lot of Democrats who, believe that abortion is wrong. So you're not listening either. You're not listening to your own people. And the Republicans, again, we always have the Republicans come up and say, "Oh yeah, we're gonna support this," and for the most part, they did in this instance. But every time they do something, they come together in support. It doesn't really amount to anything. I don't get what's going on with the GOP, other than the fact that they're in bed mostly with the Democrats. I don't understand why we can never get anything to work well. It boggles the mind. And then yesterday we had, and this is really, if anybody's shocked, you shouldn't be. We had Hillary Clinton coming out, and lifenews.com, their headline is, Hillary Clinton supports unlimited abortions up to birth. No limits, even in the 9th month. Now, is anybody surprised from this person who received an award, from Margaret Sanger, the Margaret Sanger Award, Miss Let's Eugenics, let's get rid of all of the inferior people? Is she, are you really surprised that she feels this way? Because you shouldn't be. And again, I don't see how that this isn't just plain out killing of a human life. And even after this, and her coming out in support of that, it's amazing to me. But you'll have people who either, one, don't know she said that, number two, won't believe she said that, or number three, are in favor of it themselves, and they'll go ahead, and if she's running as the presidential candidate and gets the nomination, they'll vote for her anyway. We have to wake people up. And I can tell you one thing. We always say, well, let's get out there, let's protest, let's stand in front of buildings, and let's, be vocal. All the things that I think, yes, that we absolutely need to do, we need to continue doing it, and I think we need to do more of it. I really, really do. We need to be out there every single solitary day. And I know that's impossible. But, in the days and times that we're living in right now, I think that's what is absolutely necessary to do. You have to get this in the public eye. You have to keep it in the public eye. And you have to send a message to our representatives in Congress that this is unacceptable, that we're not going to live in a society that does this. Again, statistics show, from what I've read, that the majority of Americans feel the same way that I do. They don't believe in late-term abortion. I don't know how many believe in abortion. I do not believe in abortion, except for very limited circumstances. That's the life of the mother, or rape or incest, something like that. Then I would really have to sit and think hard about the decision. But when you're talking about, these late-term abortions, when there's absolutely no doubt in any sane-thinking person's mind that this is a human being, I don't know how you sit there and say that it's okay. But back to what I was saying. We have to get out, and we have to keep this going. And, unfortunately, it takes our time and takes our effort. But here's something else I want you to think about. The left, again, they're very, very patient. They're very subtle. And they're persistent. They just do not give up. They're there to take as long as it takes, whatever that case may be. Take as long as you need to get your agenda through. And we've seen that in a lot of instances where they just Common Core is one. My gosh, I mean, most people I know that know anything about Common Core know how horrible it is. And the left has just been in our public school system for over 100 years. And they have just quietly, persistently, day after day, moved until they have furthered their agenda. We don't do that. Well, it's time. It's time in regards to Planned Parenthood and issues on abortion. We have to teach our children. And I'm talking children. You can't wait until they get to, middle school and high school. And I'm telling you, on this subject, all they're going to read about abortion is, how great it is and how mommy did you a favor by aborting you and now you're mommy's little angel in heaven. And we can't afford to do that. We have to turn things around. You have to start teaching your children why this is not acceptable, why there are alternatives, on and on and on. It's working for the left, and it could work for us. We could be just as diligent, just as subtle, maybe even a little less subtle and more out there with it. But we have to do something different. Our strategy isn't working. It really isn't working. It's not keeping up with what the left is doing. So it's time for a change, folks. It is really time for a change. And tomorrow is going to be the vote on defunding Planned Parenthood. And once again, your scare tactics already started. Oh my gosh, 46 million people, headlines on Breitbart. 46 million people are going to have their food stamps cut if the government shuts down. I mean, how many times do we have to hear the same strategy? And it's a strategy over and over and over. Get those headlines out there in public so that you scare everyone. And then you immediately turn against anything that the GOP is trying to do because you've got the bad GOP who's trying to shut down the government so people will starve. You could write that headline just as easily. Because we've got this Planned Parenthood bill that's connected to shutting down the government. You've heard this scenario 1,000 times, each and every time. And I'll tell you, I really want to have faith in this. I really do. But every single time we end up with the GOP going, oh, we just couldn't do it. Oh, we tried, but we knew we wouldn't get the votes. And we knew that right now is just not the time. We'll wait and we'll come back later and we'll get it done then. Gosh, how long have they been saying that now? Have you seen anything that's gotten done when they said they were going to come back and get the job done? Let me ask, do we still have Obamacare? Yes, we do. So I don't have much faith in tomorrow's vote. I really don't. I think you're going to see McConnell and Boehner cave as usual. It's the same old scenario, and I guess they think that we're absolutely stupid because we keep allowing it. We don't get rid of John Boehner, which we absolutely have to do. Absolutely have to do. Should have done it before. Didn't do it. Another thing the GOP couldn't get done, even with its own people. We have got to get rid of John Boehner. He has to go as Speaker of the House. Has to. And then next time you can elect somebody who's going to do the job, who's going to listen, in Ohio. You need to get John Boehner a new job, something that he can do outside of the government. Just retire John Boehner altogether at the next election. Because this is ridiculous. I mean, and we should not have and should not put all of our faith into government. Absolutely nothing happens when you do that. You may have some wins here and there, but you're going to have more losses than wins. Things are going to take forever to get done, and it's not worth it. It's not worth sitting around and waiting for the government. It's time that people decided, I'm going to take charge of my own life, and I'm going to start serving others. And I'm not going to wait for the government to say, well, we'll get around to that sooner or later. You just sit back and relax. Doesn't matter if people are in need. You just let us. We're here to help. We're the government. We're here to help. I think people are just getting tired of it and saying, you know what? You're not here to help. You haven't been helping. And the way things are, if you can base the future on the past, which you can predict most of the time. If we can look at the government's past track record, we will know that we're going to see the same thing in the future. One good example, ask the veterans. They've seen this over and over again. Oh, we're going to take care of the problems at the VA. We're going to get a new director in. We got the old one out. We got the new one in. We are going to fire people. We're going to turn this around, la, la, la. And if you talk to any veteran, and I suggest that you do, take some time. Talk to a couple of them. How's it going? How's your health care at the VA? You liking it? Is it wonderful? I can tell you that the majority of the veterans, and I've spoken to a lot of them, nothing has changed for them. It's the same old wait. Nothing happens. You don't get the care that you think that you should have. Your disability claims are taking forever, on and on and on. I watched a Senate hearing yesterday with whistleblowers. And this was the Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee yesterday. And they talked to several whistleblowers from the VA. And for the most part, I think some of these people on the committee were just absolutely appalled. Some of them were shocked. Some of them just, didn't know what to do. And the whole meeting was to talk about the VA and the retaliation allegations that these whistleblowers were there to talk about, and how their livelihood, in their opinion, has been affected ever since they came out to blow the whistle on wrongdoing within the VA. And some of these people have been trying to get this attention on this issue for quite some time, and really nobody's taking notice. But this committee is taking notice. Now, whether this committee can really get something done, I don't know. Because it seems like, from things that I've seen reading articles about the VA and everything that's happening, it seems like the director and those at the top are just kind of like, we'll get to it when we get to it. We're not going to pay attention to what you're saying. At least, that's what I'm seeing. I don't know what the truth is, because I'm not in the VA and I'm not a whistleblower or somebody else like that. I can only tell you what I see, what I hear from the whistleblowers themselves and from other people associated with the VA. I know I've read an article on where one of the senators was asking the director for some information, and they're like blowing him off, It's amazing. I mean, when you have this big government conglomerate, I think you have to expect some of that. But getting back to my point, I think there are just a lot of people who have started to say, you know what, I'm going to do this myself. And, God love them, just leave it to veterans to always get out there and lead. They were trained to be leaders. They were trained in the military. If you don't know how to do it, figure it out. If you don't know how to do it, ask somebody. But you got to do it. So don't sit around and wait for somebody else to show you or do it for you. Take the lead. And I came upon a group of people, and I have an article out right now on the Blaze about these individuals that I ran across. The article is called Veterans on Patrol Didn't Wait on the Government to Help the Homeless in Their City. And it's at theblaze.com/contributions. And basically, this is a group of individuals in Arizona made up of veterans and non-veteran volunteers. And it's a very interesting story, and I won't tell you the entire story. You can go there and read the article. But this one man basically decided to go out and bring awareness to 22 suicides a day. And that was his goal. Go out on the streets of Phoenix, Arizona, hold up a sign, Veteran Lives Matter, and just bring awareness. And he would stop and he would ask anybody on the street, to stand next to him so he could take a photo with himself, his flag, and his sign. And he even had the one of the state officials there stand next to him with the sign. And he was really felt like he was making a difference. And he started, he stayed on the street. He didn't go in at night. He slept on the streets at night. And he started becoming familiar with this group of homeless people. And because of a situation that happened with the homeless people, he basically started Veterans on Patrol. And I really do hope that you go there, read that article, and I also have a video that I put together about the whole story, about who these people are. But it truly is an interesting story, and I hope that you will share that with everyone, because we need to know about these groups. We need the public to understand and have encouragement from groups like this. But anyway, he started a group called Veterans on Patrol, and he didn't ask for donations in the form of money. He just said, hey, calling all veterans, I need help down here. We need food, water, flags, everything, to help these homeless veterans and other homeless people that I have met while down here on the streets. And so his original campaign kind of got pushed off to the side a little bit because of this new venture that he took on. And in the beginning, it was a little hairy, I think. I think the police came down and investigate, what's going on, who are you people. But I think soon, the police learned that these were good people, that they were there to help, and they were there to protect the homeless people and to get them food, shelter, and compassion. And apparently that's exactly what they've done. They've gotten some people off the streets. They've stopped some crime. I mean, how great is that? And in addition to starting this in Phoenix, Arizona, the man who started this, Lewis Arthur, has now returned to his home in Tucson. And he is going to be starting another organization of Veterans on Patrol in Tucson. I think the official kickoff is on Friday, but essentially they've already started. It was amazing. I watched them yesterday on the Facebook page, and a video came out where I guess a church in the area, according to Lewis Arthur that was speaking in the video, apparently the church had been told, you can't feed the homeless. We don't want you feeding the homeless. You're hands off. And so he gets on, video again. Hey, we need help here in Tucson. We have a problem of homeless people here who have not been fed, who are not being cared for, and we need your help. And again, the veterans and the other volunteers answered the call. They didn't think twice. They didn't say, oh my gosh, I don't have time. I'm kind of busy right now. No, I really don't. No, they got up, and they actually had to get up because they don't take money, so they had to get up and get some supplies and get down there. And you have to understand, these people are patrolling the streets at night. And I don't know about you, I would feel more comfortable having people like that in my area patrolling the streets than people being able to go around and beat up on the homeless people who are on the streets with no protection and just rampant crime rate. So I really feel that these people, it really seems like they're doing a great job. It's a great cause. And, if the churches are told they can't do it, if that's accurate, then who else is going to do it? Are you going to let these people starve? Are you going to wait for the government to come and help them? And, again, I know you haven't eaten in 2 days, but hey, we'll be right there someday. Are you going to do what these people do? And I think it's simple. It really is simple. And again, Gosh, veterans, oh, what great people. They would give you the shirt off their backs, literally. And yet, they don't necessarily get the treatment they should get or were promised when they came back after serving our country. But here they are again, out serving our country, and guess how much they get paid to do that? 0. Why are they doing it then? Because it's the right thing to do. And 9 times out of 10, veterans do the right thing. Are there bad apples in the veterans? Oh, you bet. There's bad apples everywhere. But 9 times out of 10, these people do the right thing. And they're not sitting around and waiting for somebody to give them a handout, or give a handout for, these homeless people. And they want to give these homeless people a hand up. They want to get them assistance. They want to get them taken care of permanently. Get them off the streets. But protect them while they're on the streets and before they get off the streets. And again, I don't see the officials out there sitting there talking to the homeless people saying, hey, we'd really like to process your paperwork and get you off the streets today. Don't see that. And I do know that some people, I'm not saying the homeless people necessarily, but I have known that people will try to commit some type of minor crime sometimes just to get off the streets. I can't imagine what it would be like living on the streets. And in this economic times, it's not easy for people just to go out and get a job. A lot of the individuals on the streets have mental health issues that aren't being taken care of. And it's not easy. And also they don't have showers to just go and, let me just go and get a shower. I'll put on a suit and I'll go right down there and I'll do an interview. That if you think that way, that's just wrong. But again, this group, I really do hope that you go there to the Blaze /contributions, look for my article, and pass this along, so everybody can know who these people are. We really need to start highlighting these groups, giving them credit where credit is due, and getting the word out about them. And again, the title of my article is Veterans on Patrol Didn't Wait on the Government to Help the Homeless in Their City. Great article for a great group of people who deserve some recognition for stepping up and doing the right thing. Now, another news item that we have today, this is in the Daily Caller. Title is Army Rejects Appeal of Green Beret Discharge for Confronting Afghan Boy Lover. I don't know if you are familiar with the story, but in 2011, this Green Beret came up close and personal to a local Afghan police commander who was accused of raping a boy and then assaulting his mother. The Afghan commander laughed when confronted by the Green Beret, and so he shoved him to the ground. I don't know about you. I think that shows pretty good restraint on his part. And that's all he did. So, along with the team leader, this Green Beret was removed from the base in Afghanistan. And he received, according to Fox News, on a memo that they had discovered, he received severe criticism from the leadership for interfering with someone who was accused of raping a boy. Let's just get this. Raping a boy and assaulting his mother. And then further in the article, and I've seen this in other articles, there have been recent allegations that there is a Department of Defense policy that requests its troops to look the other way in the face of rampant sexual abuse of boys by Afghan men in power. And a father of a Marine said his son told him, "At night we can hear them screaming, but we're not allowed to do anything about it. My son said that his officers told him to look the other way because it's their culture." I don't know about you, but I'm not going to sit there and listen while boys, girls, or any other child is raped by an adult in the tent next door or whatever, the building next door. You would have to literally tie me down to keep me from going over there and doing something. I don't care what your culture is. I really don't care. If I don't know how any person could sit there and not go insane by listening to the screams of a child being raped. And to have, the allegations that the Department of Defense said, just look the other way, that's their culture. Oh my God. What is it? They don't like women all that much either. So if they're beating a woman, which I've seen videos that occurs, maybe the husband beats the wife right on the street. So do we look the other way then too? I mean, no wonder the veterans coming back have issues sometimes. I mean, the things that they're subjected to, if this is true, the things that they're subjected to, just in this alone, would be enough that would put you just over the edge. I mean, come on. And they're denying this Green Berets appeal because they said there's no new information. And basically in civil court, if you want to do an appeal, you have to bring forth new information. So I guess he's getting discharged. Probably a dishonorable discharge. But you know what? I don't feel that's right, but I'd take it, and I would take it and have a badge of honor for it. Because the whole thing sickens me. It just is an absolute disgrace. And I don't hear anybody coming forward in his defense. Maybe again, people think they can't do anything about it, so they don't do anything at all. I don't know. I wish I knew if there was something or what the procedure is. If as a civilian, what would be my procedure to help this guy? What do I need to do? What congressperson do I need to talk to? We have people here in our Congress. Duncan Hunter is one who they handle things with the military affairs. Is he speaking out? I haven't heard a peep. Maybe I just haven't read it. Maybe he said something. But shouldn't somebody say something about this? Shouldn't some senator stand up and say, hey, when we have an issue here, we can't discharge this guy? And we've got Bergdahl. Wait a minute now. Did we discharge him? It shows you how far off balance, put that politely, how far off balance we are. And, we have just a real serious issue that really just keeps getting worse. It's not day by day anymore, it's hour by hour. You can't keep up with what's going on in the news and the things that are going on that are just so depraved at times, like Planned Parenthood, like this story about this Green Beret. It's just absolutely amazing, and yet the next hour you'll see a story that's probably, a lot worse than that. We've got to do something to stop this. So we also have the Pope coming to the United States, speaking at the White House, going to be speaking, I guess, before Congress. First thing that he does is really talk about immigration, talks about air pollution and climate change. Can't get by on a visit from the Pope without having that come up, right? And talks about when it comes to the care of our common home, we are living at a critical moment of history. So as if Obama weren't already on a kick with global warming, now he can say, well, see there, the Pope is right behind me. You know, the Pope and I are really pretty tight. I did walk out to the plane to meet him on the tarmac, which I have never done for anyone else. I don't think he went out there when Netanyahu came in. Could be wrong about that. Don't think he greeted him on the tarmac. Really don't think that happened. And then the Pope went on to say more Agenda 21 terms, such as, this is a CNN report, or ABC, I guess. We still have time to make the changes needed to bring about a sustainable and integral development, for we know that things can change. If you don't know what Agenda 21 is, you may want to spend some time with the topic. And our common home would be in reference to a global society. And so we also have another race-baiting article of the week. I think we see one just about every week to tell us how horrible things really are and how they're getting so much worse between the races, when before we really didn't have this type of issue. Before, people were more or less talking about it, and now we're more or less fighting about it. This is from the Washington Post. And they were saying that black and white Americans don't agree on a whole raft of social issues. You know, what about the Hispanic and Asian Americans? And there are other Americans, too, besides black and white. So, you know, maybe those races might want to speak up and say, hey, why do you keep leaving me out every time? But it said, but this much should give us all some pause. While black and white Americans agree that race relations are getting worse, yes, and I'll throw in here, thanks to President Obama and his administration, they don't even agree on, number one, what might represent an improvement in race relations, and number two, whether Black Lives Matter is a legitimate political movement, or three, whether those involved advocate violence. If you don't know how to answer any of those questions, then you have been living in a cave somewhere. As far as an improvement in race relations, I'll tell you what would help improve it. If the Obama administration and people like Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, and all the other race baiters would stay out of the issue. You've created an issue. Now you need to just back away and let it resolve itself. You've made things worse. Now you can be happy. Now you can go home and celebrate, but you just need to get out of the way because you've caused so much damage. And is Black Lives Matter a legitimate political movement? You know, I think there are some people, African Americans, who think it's a legitimate movement. But, you know, when you look at and see who is really behind this, who gave it money, what the support, where it all came from, you'd have to say, no, it's one of those, you know, political movements that was created in order to help the race baiters make the problem worse. And whether those involve advocate violence, I don't know. Look for yourselves. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you hear at Bernie Sanders, town hall meetings when people take over the microphone? What do you see when people are out in the middle of the streets blocking traffic? I don't know. Be the judge for yourself on whether or not they advocate violence. Does everybody in the group? No. I think there are some people in the group that don't even realize, how deep they are in, and don't even realize who these people really are. They think they're people just like them, and they're sorely mistaken. But, it may take quite some time before they realize that they're being used, if ever. Also, earlier in the week on my Stand for Truth radio, I had a Pastor Carl Gallups, on my show. It was a very interesting show because it gave a Christian's perspective on prepping. He's written a book called Be Thou Prepared about prepping. And if you didn't get a chance to hear that show, you may want to just go to Spreaker.com and look up Stand for Truth Radio, or go to susanknowles.com and you will see the big Listen Live button. Or just go to the page that it's on and you'll see the Spreaker button. It's all over the front page and everywhere else. And you may want to listen again, to that show, because it gave some ideas about prepping, why it's necessary, why you shouldn't really go overboard. And then we talked about a lot of issues facing Christians today. So I really do think that that's a program, again, Pastor Carl Gallup's, a show that you're really going to enjoy and want to share with a lot of people that you know, just to kind of help them and see that this is something that we need to do. He also talks about in the book about Second Amendment rights. So again, from a Christian perspective and voting and things of that nature. Some things we didn't have time to get into, but we got into a lot of information that I know Christians will want to hear and share. And turning to a little bit of political news about Donald Trump, who could go for another week without that. Donald Trump is now saying that he is not going to appear on any Fox News shows for the foreseeable future because of unfair treatment. He said, Fox News has been treating me very unfairly, and I have therefore decided that I won't be doing any more Fox shows for the foreseeable future. He tweeted that out. I can't say that I blame him. Seriously, the Megyn Kelly thing was just horrible. We won't need to go into that again. But I think he was treated better on the second debates at CNN. And people may say, yeah, that's because it was CNN. But I think too much attention was focused on Donald Trump questions on CNN. But I did think that once they got past those questions, the debates went much better than they did on Fox News, and far less questions about, irrelevant questions. And then if you thought that the issue with Kim Davis was over and done with, that's the clerk from Kentucky, no, it's not over. The American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU, is claiming now that Davis confiscated licenses issued to gay couples during her short stay in jail. They like to say that short stay in jail. I think it was, 6 days? I don't know. I've never sat in jail, but I don't think sitting in a jail cell for 6 days would be short, in that definition of short, for too many people. But anyway, she confiscated those licenses and distributed new ones that removed all mention of the county clerk's office. Instead, the documents include what the ACLU lawyers viewed as a churlish note that they were issued pursuant to federal court order. Now, basically, what they're trying to do is, she has said, make some accommodations for me, please. I just want my name taken off of it, and then you can do whatever you want. And it could be an accommodation that is easily made. She obviously, if she did that, it was very easy for her to go and make up new forms. It could be easily done, but these people, these groups, they're out for blood. They're out to get Kim Davis. They want to make an absolute point here that nothing will be tolerated except exactly what they want. Because if you're issued a new form and it basically doesn't have the county clerk's face on it or seal on it or name, then, if it wasn't against the law before, it shouldn't be against the law now. We can get into that whole discussion. It's just too much to talk about here, but so they're absolutely going out for blood, and I understand that the Liberty Counsel is going to be going into court and responding to those charges. Now, according to her attorney, Matt Staver, he said that his motion to again hold Kim Davis in contempt reveals that their interest is not the license, but rather a marriage license bearing the name of Kim Davis. They want her scalp to hang on the wall as a trophy. Wow. That was really well put. Well said there, Matt. In other news, this out of San Antonio, Texas. I don't know if you remember seeing the two young men, boys, I guess, I don't know how old exactly they are, in high school that ran across the field and basically took down a referee. I mean, just knocked him down to the ground during a game. I guess a letter came out today from the assistant coach admitting to ordering the players to hit the referee in the Texas high school game. So I would say probably at this point he's going to have to look for another profession. And, you know, I don't know what's going to happen to him, but he says that he did it out of anger, that the official used racist language. So in other words, if you hear something that's wrong, somebody's using racial, racist language, then that gives you the right to also do something wrong. What was the old saying, two wrongs don't make a right? I know we've forgotten all the things that we've learned that were good sayings that kept us on track, but apparently this assistant coach never heard that. Yeah, it could be. But ordering, the people under you, your children, to go out and commit a wrong, he should really have some huge penalties here. So we'll see what happens. Because you're talking about telling a 15-year-old and a 17-year-old, two minors, to go and commit, if you were out on the street, that would be considered an assault and battery. It really would. So you're telling these two boys to go out and commit this wrongful act. And I guess the boys went through disciplinary hearings, but there's no immediate decision on their punishment. And according to some other, outlets, this assistant coach used the N-word twice during the game. And, that's a horrible thing. If he actually did that, yes, that's horrible. Does that mean that you should go and commit a crime against somebody for saying words that you don't like or you think are inappropriate? Why didn't he immediately go and get an authority over that referee and have that referee removed or stop the game, whatever, but not ordering somebody to take down a referee? Is this the type of example that you want to set for young people? I mean, no wonder things are occurring, crimes are happening, whatever. When you try to justify actions like this, you're an adult, for God's sakes. And then we have, earlier in the week, you heard of presidential candidate Ben Carson talking about when he was asked whether a Muslim should ever be president, he said no. And, probably Ben in his own mind was probably thinking of a Muslim who follows Islam and believes in Sharia law. Of course, nobody asked him to clarify that, but immediately GOP presidential candidate Rand Paul says he could support a Muslim for president. And so there you have it. That's Rand Paul's position. And in other Trump news, he's threatening a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against the Conservative Club for Growth for its advertising campaign attacking him. And basically what that's all about is saying that the conservative group has misrepresented Trump's views on taxes by taking an old statement that he would like to hike taxes across the board on the super wealthy, a view that Trump claims that he no longer holds. And this is pretty funny in some ways if you agree with some of the things that Trump says, but he says his counsel in the letter points out by addressing the Club for Growth at one point as your pitiful little group and another as the perpetrator of a shakedown. The group earlier in the year asked for a $1 million donation from the billionaire businessman, which he declined. So, I tell you, it's like reading letters from little boys and hearing these groups fighting like little boys over a bat or little girls over a bat. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And it just gets more ridiculous every day. And it's ridiculous in view of what's going on in our society and how we really don't have time for this type of stuff, but apparently we're going to continue to see this right up until the day of the election. And let's not leave the socialist Bernie Sanders out of our conversation today. The Pope's in town, just as I told you a few minutes ago. And here's what Bernie Sanders said. If there's any doubt that the Pope is a socialist and that Bernie Sanders is, they're in agreement with each other once again. Bernie Sanders says, "Today, as we welcome Pope Francis to the U.S., I hope that Congress will heed his call for social and economic justice." So read those together. Social justice and economic justice. Folks, that's what they call socialism. And if the Pope is advocating that, which Sanders just said that he was, they have the same viewpoint, and it's definitely a socialist one. So for everybody who's voting for Bernie Sanders, if you realize that he's a socialist with socialist viewpoints and you still want to vote for him, at least you can go in there, eyes wide open, knowing what you're doing. And we said goodbye this week to GOP presidential candidate Scott Walker. And, for a lot of people, I guess they were glad to see him go. I think he has some really good policies that, unless he's a cabinet member or something like that, and I don't see him doing that. I just think that we're not going to, hear much from him again. He's going to go back and be governor of Wisconsin and just, continue on there and do a good job there, because they seem to, while they don't like some of the things they do, and those on the left don't like it, seems like he's running the state pretty well. So, we'll see who's going to be the next person to drop out. We've already seen Perry go and now Walker. I don't think we're going to see Jeb Bush go, because I know that he just filed money for Kentucky to be in the caucus there. So he just did that. I don't see him spending $15,000 to just say, well, I'm out now. I think Jeb is going to go as long as he can go. No matter where he is in the polls, he'll just keep on thinking that he's in the top of the polls and just keep on going. So when do you know when you have a problem? Well, it's when you're in Costco and you see a sample of waffles with Nutella on top of it, right? So you've got these waffles, you see the Nutella, and you're like, whoa, I've got to have that no matter what. And you rush in there and you take all the samples off when somebody else is trying to reach for a sample themselves. And a melee breaks out. Somebody gets hurt. That's when you know you have a problem. Apparently in Burbank, California, a 70-year-old man was in Costco and he was trying to reach for a sample of waffles with Nutella on top. Now, I know a lot of people who like that spread, and I don't. But, more power to those that really love that stuff. So as this 70-year-old tries to reach for his sample, allegedly this 24-year-old man starts grabbing all the samples that he can get so that nobody else can have any samples. And he was so incensed by this 78-year-old man trying to get what he wanted for free. This 24-year-old allegedly hit the older man. And the 70-year-old went to the hospital with a cut and swelling on the left side of his face. And the 24-year-old was charged with felony elder abuse and personal infliction of great bodily injury against a person over 70 years of age. In fact, this shopper, I said 70. He was 78. 78. Oh, my goodness. We've got to check ourselves, people. Rein it in here. Rein it in. It's not worth fighting over. No. I don't care if it's just waffles and chicken, waffles and Nutella, whatever you have. It's not worth you going to jail over. Okay? Buy yourself some waffles. Buy yourself a jar of Nutella. Don't worry about anybody else being there to get in your way, and just be happy. But just don't land yourself in jail because you got so excited that you hit a 78-year-old man so that you could have your waffle samples in Costco. Not a good thing. You don't want that on your record. So until I talk to you again, until next week, have a great week. Enjoy yourselves. Be good to each other. Be kind to yourself. And may God bless you. Take care.